switch my phone off.
Yeah, so welcome back, everyone. Today I'm speaking with a woman who has spent the last 16 years standing on the front lines of a war most of us hope we never have to fight. She is the CEO of Campaigning for Cancer, and she is the person that stands between the patient and the bureaucracy. While others are talking about policy, she is demanding action. So from fighting for prescribed minimum benefits to taking on the giants in the Oscar Chalupsky case, she is the voice for those who are often too exhausted to speak. So please welcome the relentless Lauren Pretorius. Lauren, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's so great seeing the connections that we see, on social media. We reached out a day or two, and here we are talking.
Yeah, I mean, it's different, right? So each time I think I connect with different people, and it's interesting to hear, what you've been doing, and where the synergies are, and what it's been like for you. So I think in this session here, we want to go a little bit deeper into the topics, right? And I think it's to help people understand these issues, because the more I'm digging into it, the more I realize how complex it is and the little I know. So I can just imagine what's happening for the rest of the public. So I'm happy that you're on this podcast.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's not a bad thing to be confused by all this stuff. It is complicated, so I'm just going to put that out there. As you said in the beginning, I've been doing this for 16 years, and every day is a learning day. So we learn, and I can understand that, it's complex. And also, if you're fighting something or you're looking to, your disease and you're dealing with those issues, this is even more overwhelming.
Okay, so the everyone that comes on this thing, I think I've started a trend now. So I'm asking people to take off the corporate mask, right? So in the work that we do, right, fighting the giants and navigating bureaucracy, you dealing with life and death type of situations there, you need a specific kind of energy, right? So if you had to pick a spirit animal, what would your spirit animal be and why?
I'd say a leopard.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's hear.
And the reason for that is because a leopard will, and that's acting in my personal and my business thing. A leopard will have short bursts of energy, and be effective, and then sit in a tree and watch the rest of the world go by for a while, see how things develop, and then start again. And I think that is something that's helped me, because also, in this kind of work, it can be to a point where you get a little bit fatigued in the actual fight, the battle. But also it helps to look at the savannah and see what's going on there and who's doing what. Because a lot of the solutions you have to find, you've got to survey. Sometimes they come from really weird and wonderful, side things that you never thought would be there. So I think that would be a leopard.
Okay, so that's cool. So it's a little bit of, you're going at tremendous speed when you're going to have to get things done, probably, right? Because there's often deadlines, there's
correct,
there's time pressures, and you gotta hit your target and go for the thing. And then there's a part of you that has to take a step back and survey the landscape again, see what's happening, and then re-strategize, I guess, right? So it makes sense.
That's exactly it. And unfortunately, sometimes that get up and go and get going is life dependent. And it can be a big thing like Oscar, or it can be as simple as getting a form done for a patient that's busy dying, and realizing that when a patient's family want to move them home out of hospital to pass away, there's 17 forms to fill in. So it's the little things, but that's where the difference is made. It's those little things and helping people understand those nuances.
Okay,
And the
so now
crazy
let's
things that we set up in the healthcare system for each other to manage it. You know, I think we all got, my father used to say, the definition of a giraffe is a horse designed by a committee. And I'm feeling that a lot of our healthcare system sometimes looks like that.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I've got to remember that. Okay, so let's try and see how this thing started with you, right? So, I mean, you've been writing a lot about your posts, and I've been trolling you on LinkedIn, so I read some of your previous posts there, and I noticed I think in the one where you were in the G20 or something, right?
Yes.
So you've been in this game now for 16 years, but you mentioned something about a beautiful naivety, right? Now, take us back to that moment that you went from this naive idea, I think, of probably trying to change the world, right? And then building this, organization campaigning for cancer today. So what was the kind of thinking, and how did you go from that moment of this is just an idea to I'm going to fight this thing? So what made you shift?
So it was slightly organic in its nature. I think we started in the original in 2007 and 2008 when the first really innovative and like game-changing cancer treatment came out, which was for breast cancer. And this medicine ensured that people with a certain type of breast cancer, their chances were reduced by 85% of getting a reoccurrence. So that's like amazing. Like that's, you think billions of dollars spent to get to this point, and now some people don't have it. And that was an innate sense of injustice for me. And
the thing is, what triggered your, like, you had the idea, and then what triggered you
yes,
to go from idea to implementation and take on such a big fight?
so I think it was certainly organic, I'll give you that. But we were in 2007 and 8, there was a medicine that guaranteed women a chance of 85% non-reoccurrence of breast cancer. Now that's amazing. That was like game-changing for these women. And they didn't have access to it. And that for me was like a fundamental injustice. I could see these young women of 30 years old being denied a future. And we decided, well, naive, and that naivety came into it where I said, well, we'll just get everyone into a room and then we can talk about it and then we can solve it. Why not? And we did the first conference ever, which got all stakeholders into a room for patients in South Africa for cancer. And at the end of the conference, we were like, okay, well, we've told you about advocacy now. Now everyone go and do it. And, that's, and they turned around and they was like, no, you need to do this. And the lady and I that were doing it together, we were like, no, this was just a conference, And there it started. It was kind of, so we were kind of thrown into the deep end, but also with an incensed sense of injustice that needed to change. And the more we started to dig and learn, the more we realized that there wasn't a voice for patients and that there wasn't a voice for healthcare consumers, and that this stuff was really, really confusing, and it was getting more confusing, and everyone was having their say and making decisions on behalf of healthcare consumers that healthcare consumers weren't in the room. I remember the first time we ever had to get into a room at the regulator, we had to threaten them with legal action. Jeez. And they were deciding on prescribed minimum benefits. I mean, it's almost 20 years later and we're still doing prescribed minimum benefits. And I remember the patient and I, we got into the room and she's like, okay, we've been fighting for 2 days to get into the room. What do we do now? And I was like, I don't know. I don't understand what they're talking about, but we're here. And things have changed, we've learned a lot. If I knew then what I know now, things would have been a lot different. But I think that naivety of coming together and being able to change something is what helps those short bursts. And, just always trusting in the sense of humanity.
So, but listen, so the thing that I'm also noticing, right? Because I mean, what you're telling me seems similar to what I'm experiencing now online. Is I think I can see what the problem is. I tell people what the problem is, and I say, right, go off and do it. Nobody does anything. And I'm like, man, what the hell? I told you what to do. Just do it. So the thing that I'm also trying to understand here, and it's funny that you're talking about women in this business or in this game that you're playing, right? I mean, not game, the thing that you're trying to do. But one thing that I'm noticing is that, like, well, I think I read one of the quotes somewhere or some post that you shared. It was something about that passion is the fire that burns when no one is watching. It was something you shared, right? Now, why is it that I notice more women fighting online than the men? And I like all the activists that I'm seeing that are coming my way and fighting about these health things. There's this physio lady in Pretoria, Leslie.
Yes.
There's what's her name? I think it's Nicole. There's some other woman, Anna Marie. What's her name? I think Barta Jordan.
Yes.
It's all women. And I'm not seeing the men with that level of passion and fighting spirit. And to me, this is like kind of amazing. So what do you think is causing it?
I think it's fundamentally the difference between women and men. Women have a lot more words to share in a day. We get a lot more quotas of words. But I think also that we've had certain struggles to look at, and that might have been ingrained in us in some of our cultures. But I also think that a lot of the time it's the woman that sees the coalface of the impact of their family of these health issues, and they're dealing with the children and the husbands and so on that are doing it. And that's not to say that the husbands don't care about it and that, but I think it's that. And I think also guys solve problems differently. Women will get together. If we look at like the breast cancer movement and so on, they get together, they get dressed up, they get dressed in pink, and they start talking. You know what I mean? Men will, go and
analyze the problem first.
Analyze the problem, understand the problem, maybe talk about it a little bit, and then decide, okay, well, let's meet again and talk about it and analyze it some more. Maybe we each come up with a solution, and then we present our solutions, and then we see who's got the best solution. Generalizing a lot, but I think that's fundamentally is the way that we problem solve.
So, so you're seeing it as an extension of that natural caregiver role, right? So that if you take a traditional environment, the woman was the main caregiver, and that extension now is also to sort of defending, I guess, the rights and the care that you're receiving. And what I'm seeing now is a lot of corporates are actually just, I don't know, sidestepping a lot of rules and stuff. So I think women are actually, it's amazing for me because a lot of them I see more of them speaking up. So it's quite interesting that you say you also see it as a role, how we play.
Yeah, and also don't get a 40-year-old woman upset. It's not a good thing to do. We bear a grudge.
Well, yeah, listen, that's why I think I'm still single here. So on my age level, it's like becomes harder and harder. So let's get a little bit now into the nitty-gritty of the stuff, right? So these are things I think I think people want to understand, but it's so complex, right? So for me, it feels as if the PMBs, which are prescribed minimum benefits, are becoming weaponized, right? And it feels as if the tool was set up I don't know how, but it was supposed to benefit people. But now the rules and the traps and everything that's been set there, it's actually become more complex for people to use the tool, and it's actually weaponized against them, right? So I think first of all, maybe start with what is your take on what is an actual PMB? What do you understand from it? What is it? And why?
Yeah.
Where does it fit into the whole system?
Yeah. So first of all, I think that we can say that, look, let me start by saying that the idea and the principles of PMB come from a good place. They come from the ideals and principles of protecting people and almost the infancy of universal health care. So we look at that. However, as you say, it's got more and more complex because there are more and more sub-clauses of subsections that people have to deal with. The idea started with saying that if you are paying for medical scheme and for medical scheme benefits, you fundamentally should get more than what you, or at the very minimum, what you were getting in state. So had you gone to the state, you should get equal to that. And this prevented us from getting into a situation where literally you were paying for nice waiting rooms and paint, you know, and a good and a magazine to read while you were waiting for your doctor. So the PMBs were a list of stuff that were created, and they said, you know, we're going to say that these conditions are the things that you definitely would have got in state, and therefore the condition is a PMB. But then they linked a treatment plan to that PMB. So they made a list, and this is where the thing managed healthcare comes in. Managed healthcare is the idea of we pool a bit of money together, and we try and serve the greater population of the people that pooled the money together, but we also try and help the individuals, and that's where the rub lies. And they then created what is called formularies and protocols, and that's basically the list of medicines or procedures that they'd use to treat. And they're basically saying, if you got that medicine or that procedure in the state, then it must come out the PMB risk pool. In other words, the medical scheme must pay for it out of their risk pool, all right? And then what you do is you build benefits. So you buy benefits on top of that. So your benefits sit on top of your PMBs. And it's not that, yes, and it's not that you should go through your benefits and then go into the PMBs. It's that
exactly, because it works different.
It's that you must go to they must select the right pool to take your money from. So if you have PMBs, you have your benefits. So let's use oncology. You have your cancer benefit, and then you have your medical savings account. When a claim comes in, it's not you go through this and then we choose. No, we choose according to what the law says. And one of the things that you said that it was weaponized, it's being weaponized. I do feel that it is being, to a certain extent, weaponized to manage that rub that I was talking about. But at the end of the day, there's a law. And the responsibility does not lie on the patient. It lies on the medical scheme and the administrator of the medical scheme to make sure that they choose it from the right pot. What they're doing is, at the moment, selectively choosing and saying, oh, sorry, I made a mistake.
But hang on there, wait. This is now interesting for me because, you know, I was trying to help a woman with the hysterectomy thing, and she was, you know, denied cover, and that's how I got involved, and this whole thing went viral, and then I learned how to do social media, and then it just blew up from there. So the thing is, though, is that what I can't understand, because what you're telling me is fundamentally different. They are asking the patient or the client or whatever to figure out what the PMB is. And I'm saying, but listen, as a health insurance company, you should know where it slots in already.
Correct.
They kind of doing a chicken and egg game here, and then forcing the person to pick out of, I don't know, 400, 500 things, and then there's sub things and whatever. And when you get it wrong, they reject it. And it's kind of like the patient or the customer has to dig for a needle in the haystack. And then when you can't find it, they say, aha, got you. You don't qualify. And that's wrong. That's wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've had quite over the years, we've had quite a few arguments with medical schemes. Number one is, in the beginning, they wouldn't give us the formularies. So it's like, how must I know what's on the list if you don't tell me what's on the list?
Wow.
And we got rulings on that. But the law says that you have to give me the formulary. So why are you not? Now, when patients ask it, 80% of the schemes will. But even now today, we'll get a patient saying they won't give me the formulary, and we have to send out a Campaigning for Cancer letterhead going, really? Do you want to try again with that? Let's give you another go to get this right. So that is something that it's those little things, those little liberties and rights that haven't been done. Simple things like in the beginning, we had to insist that the decline, if they were declining a treatment, that it would come in writing and that they would put on the decline why they were declining it. Because in the past, they weren't doing that right in the beginning when we started. They were just saying it's been declined. And then we were like, well, why is it being declined? Tell us why. And the reason these things are important is because when you get into like a case with Oscar, where you start complaining to the regulator, to the Council for Medical Schemes, this all has to be on paper, because otherwise even more goal shifting happens. So it's a complicated thing. I'll give you an example. I have a PMB condition and I get a PMB medicine and it costs like 37 Rand a month. Okay. I don't check. I mean, whether it's coming out of my medical savings or my, I don't check. But then I thought to myself, wait, let me go and check. And for 3 years, they hadn't taken it out of my PMB risk pool. All the blood tests, everything. And it's like $400 for a blood test every 3 months, which I was paying for. And so I went back to council and I was like, this is wrong. And they were like, yes, this is wrong. Because they have to pay for everything linked to that disease.
Whoa.
So we went back 3 years and we said, right, now you're going to go back and give me R2.50 every month for 3 years. And it wasn't about the R2.50. I think in the end, I still haven't seen it put back into my medical savings. That's another argument we're going to have. But in the end, it was like something like 2,500 Rand altogether. But at the end of the day, you know what? That might be a month's worth of treatment for someone. So it's vital, and it's these little clips. Exactly. Imagine they misallocate something of 100,000 Rand. We've had it where we've had cancer patients where the radiation people are saying there's no more cancer benefit because the oncology people used all of it for chemo, right? And then I'm like, but you would get that radiation in state. So why are you paying it out of the oncology benefit? It must come out of the PMB benefit. So all that oncology benefit is for what you would not get in state.
And okay, so it sounds as if guys are interpreting laws and rules here to benefit themselves, and I don't think they're actually applying it. And the issue is, I think the public doesn't really know what their rights are. That seems to be another problem here. Correct.
And so a few things. This stuff has been litigated in High Court. A lot of the stuff has been litigated. The idea of Regulation 8, which was the part of the law that said a scheme must pay for the diagnosis, treatment, and subsequent care in full with no penalty to the patient, no copay, and no I can't remember the actual word in the law, but it's no reduction. Okay, so in other words, the patient must pay nothing. Okay, that was done in law. That went into the High Court, and there were rulings on it. It was huge. I want to say about 8 years ago. So these rulings have been done. The schemes have fought these things and lost. So it's not like they don't know.
So, okay. So look, I think you were talking now a little bit about oncology, right? So, which I think comes back to this Oscar Chalupsky case, right? So,
yes.
Now you posted on your page, that's where I tagged you, is
yes.
like, the council has rescheduled this thing to March 2026, right? Which is quite a delay again, because I've been following it since last year. I got involved in October. So I think this thing has been going on for a while, right? Now, then I started reading some of the user comments on your post, okay? And I'm just going to run through a couple here so people get some context, okay? And you don't have to answer them here, but just so people understand what the guys are saying. So Ben Lombard, right? He said that, the harm is real, measurable, and irreversible when treatment is postponed. When delays like this happen, is the medical scheme held liable for the health deterioration that happens during the delay? Another guy, I think Rocco Stradom, said, okay, Rocco asked simply, is this a delay tactic, right? And then another, I think J.K. Lipper referred to it as the Stalingrad defense, right? So some are asking, okay, so why isn't the license suspended of the scheme? It's a corporate sort of pathological behavior. Why is there no real punitive sanctions for the schemes that ignore these legal rulings, right? So let's hear it from you here. Why is the Oscar case so important? Why are you fighting that so strongly, right? And what does it mean if he loses it or wins it, right? And what does it mean to the average South African person that's got similar issues or something like that? What does it mean?
So the first thing with the Oscar case and why we fought it, just to let you know, we fight other cases like this for other patients. So it's not like we're only doing Oscar's case. Our guys we have 7 case managers that are helping on any one day. So that's something that we can. The one thing though with Oscar was that Oscar felt deeply that he wanted to use his public persona to show that this was what he was doing. Secondly, Oscar had a cancer that if he didn't have the money to pay for the updates on that, he'd be dead. So we've seen patients waiting for results and rulings from the regulator that have died. So these are things, or that patients have had to sell their houses so that they can get the medicine in between the time that we put it forward and the ruling that we get. So Oscar had that ability, and Oscar was deeply incensed by that. He's like, just because I can get my hands on money to stay alive, and I've got this determinate grit that doesn't stop and that comes with a professional sportsman, that shouldn't be why I'm alive. That shouldn't be something. So for us, it was also to highlight some of the things that are happening with the PMBs and to understand that. Number 2 was to highlight that the delays that patients are having and the impact of those delays. And then just to highlight how unfair it is, how unfair the system is, and how the system, in the words of another patient that what we once helped, like the system can be your death sentence. And that's where we came with Oscar, and we're really thankful to him. Oscar has got a sense of grit, but he's also a patient, and he has good days and bad days, but he never doesn't answer the phone, and he never doesn't help a patient, on that. So we were grateful on that. And just the fact that we won it twice. Our case managers had put the case through two phases of the 3 phases and won twice.
But this I couldn't understand, because That's where I picked it up. So my post went viral. I mean, my social media is better than Discovery because I get noticed by it. So I took that picture of Ron Whelan, lying on the whatever on these things, showcasing himself, and then showed what's happening to Oscar, and that thing just blew up the internet. And the issue is that there is such a, how can I call it, disparity in terms of how they are presenting themselves versus what they're really doing, right? And I mean, there you are fighting it. You won it twice, and then why would you fight it? I mean, if the whatever the regulator is ruling in favor of the patient, why would they go against it? I mean, help me understand that.
Because it shows up, number one, that they're not implementing the PMBs as they need to be implemented. And number two, it shows up that maybe that list that they had is not so up to date. And the benefit is not as good as what it is. Because I have to tell you, in multiple myeloma, in the last 15 years, okay, there's been an incredible amount of development in the medicines to treat it. In the last 10 years, the life expectancy of a multiple myeloma patient has doubled, okay? The medicines that we're talking about and fighting about, those aren't new medicines. Those medicines came to the market in 2015. We're fighting about medicines that are 10 years old. Okay. Now, if I'm battling to look at medicines that are 10 years old, what about the 9, 10, 11, 13 different medicines that have come after that, that'll keep you alive? That Oscar has to have gone to Portugal to get onto a clinical trial. That he's gone to Germany to try and get onto those. He's gone to China. When Germany wouldn't give it to him, he went to China. Those patients don't even have access to that in this country. So now I'm saying that is completely wrong. We have billions of dollars of research input through public funding across the world to develop all these things, and then we can't get it. And my thing is, you can spend all the money in the world to develop it, and you can find a cure for cancer, and all that money is wasted if you can't get it to the patient. Well, it's a waste of money. It's ego. It's ego. Then you've got an ego drug.
No, absolutely.
Then you've got an ego drug, because if you've created something that can double someone's life, and no one is willing to sit around a table and figure out how we get that to the patient, then your ego's got in the way.
I mean, the ego thing, I'm seeing it as well, right? So it's not only the ego of not treating the patient, but I see it in these bonuses that have been paid out for some of these companies. So when I look at how they are enriching themselves, and, I did a couple of posts and articles on that, and the bonus that the executives are earning, and then you've got your customer base that is dying. I mean, this to me is you profiting at the expense of humanity. So where that type of thing, I'm not saying profit shouldn't be there, but when you are skimping on the rules and then you are sort of interpreting the rules in a way that is actually, I think, counter to what was intended, right? And you're profiting from that. At whose expense are you profiting? Those are the questions that need to be asked.
Yeah, and this is where the roles of everyone comes into play, because in South Africa, so we often get told the medical scheme is a non-profit organization and the members own it, right? So technically, the members of the medical scheme own that pot of money, okay? And they set up a board of trustees to look after that pot of money. Now, in the case of Discovery, that is Discovery Medical Scheme, okay? And this is a really important thing to figure out, okay? Because they then appoint someone, which is called an administrator, whose job it is to do managed healthcare and is to make that money stretch as long. But if you're talking to someone about the rules and that, and their focus is the saving as much money versus the principal officer of the medical scheme, where his role is to look after the scheme and the members of the scheme, can you understand where the deciding rub comes? And that's why it's so important to understand who you're talking to at the scheme. Because often Discovery Health will be the one that's making the decision and talking to you, but actually you should be talking to Discovery Medical Scheme.
Look, the thing is, I think this thing needs to be re-evaluated, because to me it feels as if there's a conflict of interest, and whoever's in between there, that something needs to be independent. So you need an independent administrator, almost like you have an independent auditor or something.
Well, that's what the Council for Medical Schemes is supposed to do.
Well,
that's what they're supposed to regulate.
Somebody's not doing their job. That's what they're supposed
to regulate. And the issue here, I think, from a patient point of view, okay, is to say, if I can get patients to walk away with one thing, that administrator is a service provider to the medical scheme. They are on KPIs and targets and everything. If I am an owner of the medical scheme and my service provider is not giving me, as the owner, what I want, I need to start talking about that. I need to start saying, I'm not happy with this service provider. This service provider is not providing the list that is up to date enough. This service provider is not implementing and telling you, the scheme, how to manage your PMBs. This service provider is allocating my claims to the wrong pool. If a plumber came to your house and connected the pipes incorrectly, the wrong pipe to the inlet pipe to the outlet pipe, what would you do? You'd lose it. You'd tell them to come back and fix it. You wouldn't use them again. That's what that is the kind of pressure we should be putting on administrators. They should be doing a job, and the scheme should be checking that they're doing that job properly.
Mm-hmm. So listen, I think, I mean, you're dealing with tragedy and, bureaucracy and these medical schemes and, what do you call it? The administrators and stuff like that on a daily basis, right? So you're facing these delays and things, right? So, but when I listen to you, I can see the leopard come out. So I can see that that energy is there, the drive is there, right? So, I mean, what are you doing, like, whether it's on a personal basis or whatever, that gives you that energy and that drive? What is it that you can share with others who are facing these battles that you've, I don't know, learned over time, that you think somebody else could apply in their daily life, because you've got that momentum? So what are you doing then?
I can't tell. People ask me this, and it's so hard, and that's why I look like I'm like a deer caught in headlights at this moment, because I think it's that I was raised with not to accept injustice. Okay, fundamentally raised like that, not to accept injustice. And I was raised that basically, if you nag enough, you'll get what you want. So that combination is quite a thing. They call it grit. That's the the what you call it term nowadays, the good term. The like PC term about it. Yeah, the trendy term. But I think that it's fundamentally, if something's not right and it's my right, then I do it. I have this. I tell this story when I do discussions on universal healthcare, and so I have a 8-year-old nephew, and he's 8 going on 28, and he'll probably be a lawyer. And when he was 3, he could outlawyer you to your nth. And And he asked me what human rights were the one day. And like, I should be able to like, you know, tell him and go, and I did all the, you know, human rights and that. And he said, so medicine is a human right. So I was like, yeah. I sat there and he said, so because I didn't get asked to be born, that's why I get it. And I was like, yep, you didn't get asked to be born. That's why you get it. And that was so simple. It's like none of us asked to be born. None of us asked to be born into the state that we've got. But humanity demands that that's the one thing we should get. We should look after each other when it comes to our health. And, you know, we can talk about universal healthcare and that, but if you get into managed healthcare, don't be upset when we ask you to do managed healthcare and do it properly. And that's my thing, is like, do the job properly and do it ethically and transparently and the way you're supposed to do it.
So, but listen, that touches on something else here, and that, like, what I'm noticing is that there's very few people that are willing to step up and fight now for humanity or for their own rights or whatever, right? And I think it's fear. That's my view. Is people are stuck in a fear mindset where they, whatever the remnants are of the past, they can't break the shackles of the mind that they are trapped in, right? So what advice could you give to people that are stuck in that fear of not wanting to speak out? They're afraid to speak out, or they're afraid to, I don't know, fight for their rights. What could you tell them that could help them, you know, step up and actually do something for them? What could you share?
So for me, I think it's a combination of being fearful, but also being overwhelmed. It's like, you know, how do I mean, I've just told you a few things today, and you know, it's like all these nooks and crannies you need to know. You know, it's like when you get in the room and like, well, we fought to get in the room, we're only going to say no, we got nothing, you know, it's that kind of like overwhelm. So, but there's a thing that one of my mentors in advocacy told me, and it's the fourth part of advocacy. And that is that find people. There's safety in numbers. Work in groups. Find help from things like Campaigning for Cancer. Say your say on Oscar's thread, because you know what? People are reading that. And it shows that there's a sentiment. And once people are coordinated around a sentiment, that changes the world. And so I'm saying find places to express your sentiment in a place that you feel safe, that is not derogatory to any one person, but that there are groups of people that are going to help you and guide you through that, because you can't do it alone. And that's why we created Campaigning for Cancer, was because we could see that the patients couldn't do it alone. I wouldn't be able to do it alone. I have to tell you that. I mean, I have those cases. My case managers deal with cases every single day. I don't see every case as the CEO of the organization. The ones I get are the ones that, you know, are in to say the trendy thing, like extra, you know, the things that are extra, I get that.
Something has hit the fan.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, no, you need to, they'll call me, I'll come in and I'm like, do you need my help? And they're like, they'll come in and they're like, yeah, no, you need to step in here. But they do a lot of their own stepping in. And that for me is because when we started, it was just me and one other person. And we were getting incredibly burnt out because we were fighting these on behalf of people. And we could see the patients getting burnt out. But when there was groups and we were working together and we were working with the doctors to get it together, that was a force to be reckoned with. So I'm saying, like, find your tribe and make sure that you're with people that are saying the thing, and then find a way to do it. You don't have to be standing on the, and to use a South African terminology, you don't have to be standing in the street toy-toying. There are other ways that you can do that nowadays that are a little bit less overwhelming and a little bit safer.
I mean, I'm trying to do that with the guys in the labor unions, I'm trying to get them involved now because I told them, you guys go and shout on the streets there and toy. It's great. It's exercise for somebody. That's the one thing I can see it. You make a lot of noise, but nobody sees you. It's just the people driving on that small corner. Nobody else sees you. When you're on, on these social platforms, you get a lot more exposure. You can do a lot more. You can get a lot more people participating in the conversation. So I think, I hear what you're saying there.
Yeah.
So listen, so this thing that you say, you don't have to do it all alone. I think that's a nice note here for us to try and to close things. So people often feel that they are alone in this journey, right? So if people want to reach out to you, right? How is the best for them to contact you? What do they need to have in place? Do they need to have anything in place? How do they reach you? What's the best way, for them to get in touch with you?
So we can the best you can contact us via our social media, which is @campaign and then the digit 4 cancer, or you can contact us on and go old school on our website, which is www.campaign4cancer.co.za. On that website, there's a form you can fill in that will help us. And one of our case managers, it goes directly to the case manager, and then they'll guide you. They'll help you fill in a consent form, which is what we need to start, because there's laws about us knowing your medical details, and then also tell you what we have negotiated to speed things up, the kind of information we have negotiated to speed things up. The fantastic thing with our case managers is you don't even have to go and find the documentation. They'll speak to your doctor and get it. So there's even that consent form is really important, but they do work to try and help you through that. And in the beginning, it might look like a lot of documentation, but it's what we discussed with the regulator to try and get those days, 90 days down to 10 days, or 120 days down to 4 days, just because of the urgency of some of the disease and the situations that patients find themselves in.
Okay. So listen, thank you so much for talking to me. I think this has been another interesting conversation. So is there any sort of final words you want to share with people? Because you've seen these battles, I guess, countless times, right? Is there something, for people that are feeling that, the battle is hopeless, that they don't have anything, or they can't fight anymore? Is there any words that you want to share with them? How can they get through this?
So my first thing is that if it seems unfair, it generally is. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Use that as your first guide. Secondly, if you are looking for help, find people to help you. Like actively, there are people out there that will help. I know they're hard to find as people who help. We're really good at helping. We're just not good at telling people that we help them. So I would say, go on to the socials, find out where people are talking, and then find those resources. But I can tell you, in this situation, there's an entire act that is set up to help you and support you. There's an act in law with regulations that is set up in the beginning with the principle of looking after patients. And it might be overwhelming, but people like us, we're there to cut through the weeds and, distill the message to the regulator that this is actually what this is about.
Okay, fantastic. Lauren, thank you very much. And I'm going to end.
My pleasure.
Yeah.